Hey, I want to talk today. Do you know what to monitor? Do you know that? What if someone asks you that at interview or while working? Do you know what to monitor? What are you going to say? And I think a good approach is to follow what's in the Google SRE book. This is a free book, by the way. It's what they call the 4 golden signals for monitoring systems. So I've simply Googled it, and we just go to it now and have a look. Now this is going to be really casual. I'm just going to run through this page. So if we scroll down here, get to where it says, and this is all really good, but here we are, the 4 golden signals. They're basically latency, traffic, errors, and saturation. So if you can talk about this in an interview, if there's ever an opportunity to talk about monitoring, of course you can say that many of the modern tools will give you a base level, out of the box, base level metrics and alerts and stuff like that. But it really helps if you know what these 4 golden signals are, because you can then go modify from that base level, few little tweaks with this in mind, and be really well suited to the company needs and requirements. So let's just read through this. So the first one is latency. I think you already have an idea of what this is, but it's basically the time it takes to service a request. And what they say here is really quite interesting. They say here, I think a lot of people don't do this, they say distinguish, make sure that you're not looking at just the bigger picture of latency, but distinguish between requests that are successful and those that are failed, because you actually may have different average latency for successful requests and failed requests. So it says here that, for example, you might get an HTTP 500 error, but it could actually come back super quick, this error, but it's failed. So if you include these quick failures in your overall latency stats, they're going to make your they're going to make you think that most of your requests that are successful, the average is actually much quicker than it really is in reality. It's actually your successful requests, the stats are being made to look better because of your quick failures. So be sure to exclude those. Now, of course, it also says even a slow error is obviously even worse than a fast error, but you need to track separately error latency, and don't even just take it out of your stats, but actually look at your error latency as well, because slow errors, as they say, are even worse, and they'll be slower to come back and get reported on and to trigger your alerts. So that's latency, time to service a request. Let's scroll down, look at the next one. Traffic. So how much demand is being placed on your system? How much demand? And it gives some great example here on the most common services. So for a web service, it's typically requests per second. So this is important as well. It's not just requests, it's not just number of requests, but it's per second. So it's a rate. Anything that is per second or per unit of time is a rate. But here's another example for, let's say, audio streaming, or it could be video streaming, something like YouTube. It may not just be a rate, it could be actually an absolute value of something. So it could be number of concurrent sessions. Like it could be like on a YouTube stream, when you see how many people are connected to your stream, that is a measure of traffic. But they do give also a rate here. It could be network I/O rate. So for example, if you take the number of kilobytes per second, but if you per user connected to your stream, and then you multiply that by all the users, the number of users connected, then that will give you overall network I/O rate. It will give you all those kilobytes. It probably adds up into megabytes and probably more, but you want to know what that is per second. So for a key value storage system, a database, it could be transactions and retrievals per second. So it could be, it could be like you're getting like, only only one transaction or only one retrieval is being made per second. That's probably okay. Well, what if it's like 1,000 per second? Then you could end up hitting the limits on your hardware and have to scale out or scale up or something like that. So that's traffic. So I mean, you kind of intrinsically know what traffic is, but what I like is that it really is specified here quite clearly what that is. Errors, and this is a request that fails. So, and they give a couple examples here. So it could be an explicit error, like a 500 error, a server-side error, or it could be implicit. So you could get a success code, like a 2xx success code, but it's actually the wrong content delivered. Or it says, for example, by policy. So it could be you have a commitment, or I guess like a kind of expectation that your response time will be sub 1 second. But if it's over 1 second, then you consider that to be an error. You consider that because you made a policy decision on that. So it says here that it can be quite different. To catch these errors really depends on your use case, how you do that. So of course, something as simple as a 500 error can be easily caught at the load balancer. That's not difficult. But if you're serving the wrong content, how do you detect that? It says that you may need end-to-end system tests to detect that you're serving the wrong content. It may be more difficult to do. So typically, if you're starting your monitoring, you will start with the ones that are easier to catch, the explicit ones, but later on, especially if you really value your customers and want to deliver to them a quality experience, if you're not catching wrong content being served, then they're going to get angry and may drop you as a provider and go be a customer somewhere else. So it is well worth the effort, but it's going to require a bigger investment for you in terms of the end-to-end testing. The final one of these 4 golden signals is saturation. That's how full your service is. I like the way they call it a measure of system fraction. And yeah, this will typically be things like your compute, your memory, your disk, and things like that. So it gives some examples here. So most services need to use indirect signals like CPU utilization or network bandwidth that have a known upper band. And this one is more tricky if you're going beyond the simple indirect measures like hardware utilization, CPU, memory, network, disk. It also says here that it can also be concerned not with when you're actually saturated, but when you're about to be saturated. So they call it impending saturation, such as it looks like your database will fill its hard drive in 4 hours, and you want to be alerted on that. So this one I would say is a little bit more complicated. It's quite easy to say and alert when something is full or about to be full. You know, when disk space is at 80% and then 90% and then 95%, things like that. But it gets a little bit more nuanced and complex if you want to get more into saturation, and they explain some of that here. I'm not really talking about that. I'll allow you to go and Google the SRE book and Google for the 4 golden signals yourself. But anyway, I just wanted to make you, the whole point of this video was to simply make you aware. It gives you something that you can read yourself and then bring up at an interview, or if you're actually involved in implementing monitoring and taking it beyond the base level of out-of-the-box pre-configuration, then this is a great starting point. As it says here, if you can only measure 4 metrics, then focus on these 4. And this is all you need to get started. You don't need to go read a book on monitoring or anything like that. This is simply what you can get started on: the 4 golden signals: latency, traffic, errors, saturation. This is enough to kick off a meeting with important people in your workplace and start having discussions, including with the stakeholders, and start saying, well, you know, what's important for the customer experience, for example. So this is a great starting point. the 4 golden signals. Hope you found that useful. I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.